I want to talk to you today about a thing called connecting the umbilical cord. I know that may not sound exactly inviting to you, but I want you to think for a second. You live in the perfect situation. Your physical circumstances are ideal. You're always fed. Everything seems to be perfect temperature. It's never too hot, never too cold, never having to adjust the thermostat. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Temperatures are perfect in your life. You have zero stress. You'd never be depressed. There's not any pressure on you. You're in what's considered to be the lap of luxury. You're never hungry. You always like what you have to eat. You've not changed anything about your diet. You got the ability of being able to rest. You've got the ability of being able to relax. Those are your top priorities in your life. Rest and relaxation. You exercise the way that you want to. You decide everything. It all happens on your schedule. I know many of you are sitting here going, what a life. Man, if I could only live a life like that, if I could only enjoy a life similar to that, well, you've all lived it. Every single one of you have lived it for a short period of time in your life, and then you were born. The first thing that happens when you're born, most of the time, is that you cry. They want you to cry. They want you to take deep breaths. They want you to open your lungs. Lungs, I've never breathed in my life. I've never had to use my lungs before, and now I'm going to have to do it for the remainder of my life. The perfect environment is destroyed. And what you see as an instant, you leave that lap of luxury and you begin your life in this world. Now, there's people that are around you that are cuddling you, and they're holding you, and they're kissing you, and they're telling you, and the flashes are going off, and the movie cameras are rolling, and everybody is celebrating. You would think it would be a great time for you, but you just want to basically return to that existence that you'd only known in your life. You just want to go home. You had the ability of being able to communicate at any time. You'd be able to say, this world that you have brought me into is not my world. I don't belong here. Look at me. See the tears running down my eyes. Listen to the screams that are coming from my voice. I'm shaking. I'm shivering. Somebody wrap me up. Somebody lay me closer to that heartbeat that I can feel so closely to. It's not that way anymore. You see this life where you try to understand this motive that's going on in your life and the environment that is there, and nothing now is permanent. You didn't ask for this responsibility, did you? You didn't ask to be a part of this world. You were brought into this world very simply because someone else made that choice for you. Conditions are just horrible. Several times a day you feel wet. You've never felt that wet before. Parents sometimes will respond to you quickly, and the wetness or the smell of a dirty diaper won't be there very long, but you know it's there. You know it's there from the instant. Several times a day you start to discover pain. Wet or dirty causes you to have pain. That thing called diaper rash that comes on every baby. But all you knew at that time, all you knew at that given moment was that you hurt. It's not right. And if we looked at it from your personal perspective, if we looked at it the way that you could make the decision, this is not the life that you would want. In fact, this is the life that you would fight against just so you didn't have to worry about being in the position that you're at. These weird people talking to you tell you welcome to earth. You're often hungry. You've never felt hungry before. You had a lifeline from that umbilical cord that gave you your nourishment as you needed. Constantly hooked up. Never having to have those hunger pains in your stomach anymore. With hunger, you begin the long journey of learning what food you like, what food you don't like, what food you crave, what food you can't even seem to place into your mouth. At first, your rest is pretty good, but not as good as before birth. Some babies rest great, and some babies flip-flop their days from nights and will cry all night and basically sleep all day. Nothing seems right that goes on in your life, and they're saying, you'll get used to it. You'll get used to it. Throughout all of this, we can talk about Jesus. Jesus did not fit in this world. Somebody say, what do you mean Jesus didn't fit in this world? Jesus didn't belong here. It was obvious that Jesus did not belong in this place that he was coming from. How many of you would leave heaven to come back to earth? And I know we've talked about that before, and I had an entire sermon about that one time, that if I can overcome this world and I can maintain my spirituality and I can maintain my relationship with God and continue to fight off the devil each and every day, if I can do what God has asked me to do in the responsible person of my life, if I can do that, if I can just do that till my death, if I can stand before God on the day of judgment and God says, Kevin, I appreciate what you have done. I'm thankful for you of spreading the gospel and helping those that are in need and being able to lift my name on high and raise my word in this world even more in just a little area that you were. The mission work that you did, the outreaching that you did okay, and because of that, I now give you the opportunity of enjoying heaven for eternity. If I symbolically go beyond those gates, I want somebody to lock the doors. I want them to padlock it. That's it. I've made it. Don't ask me to leave. But how many of us would be able to say, God, I made it. I never want to leave this area again. There was a lot of people when Jesus came that knew that Jesus did not belong. Some of us still might be thinking, why do you think that, Kevin? Jesus was the best thing that ever happened in this world. Why would you say that Jesus doesn't belong? For the last 2,000 years, the Jesus factor has been the number one reason for war. More people have died in the name of Christ in Christianity than in any other name that can be out there in this world today. It's entirely possible that more people have died because of their faith in Christianity than any other religion. Just because of who you say that you belong to. Just because of who you say you put your faith in. Just because of who you are and what you're committed to. And then what you teach your children. Has caused many people in this world to have died. I agree that Jesus was the best thing that happened in this world, but I totally disagree that people prove it by fighting wars over his name. I totally disagree. that people have not justified Jesus, but in name only, but in the lack of faith. We don't prove Jesus' value in this world by using Jesus to cause death and pain. That's been brought up with the terrorist thoughts. And there's been a plea that has been gone out. There's a plea that has been made. Why would you kill in the name of who you believe your Savior was? Why would you do that? Why would you try that? Why is that part of people's lives today? Those of the Islamic faith believe that by killing others because you did not turn yourself over to their religion, you become the infidel. Still can't grasp the idea of how their God is happy with that. Now I want you to think for a second, if you will. Our job, our religion, doesn't tell us to go out and try to convert all those in the world with the subjugation of, if you do not, kill them. If I can't come, and if I can't relate to you to the Scriptures and relate to you of Jesus Christ, then basically just kill you. It's over. And for those of that faith that do not believe in this radicalized idea, how they can sit by and allow this to happen in their own religion. Somebody has brought up, well, you know, Kevin, back in the 70s and 80s, you Christian people, you bombed abortion clinics. I didn't. You said abortion was wrong and you couldn't get the votes to be able to overturn abortion, so many of the Christian radicals went out there and they bombed it. We don't have authority to be able to do that. Our Bible doesn't teach us that. They went on their own. They went rogue out of Christianity, and by doing that, by the way, they're going to stand before God on the day of judgment. But you don't hear this in the Islamic community anymore. You don't hear this going about yelling and screaming and saying this is going to stop. Islam against Islam. You don't see them trying to say that this world is going to come together and stamp out this radical idea of killing you. Because they don't believe you need to breathe their air, to be a part of this life. Now, many of you say, Kevin, that might be simple for you to be able to speak inside the four walls of the church in Viola and the community, not an Islamic person around. But you'd be surprised to know that we now are taping our sermons. They are not only taped, but they're being videoed. They go around the world. In the past week, Dad's Bible study reached more people that watched just his Bible study as he was taking my place. More people watched his Bible study than was here in our congregational setting. We reached more outside than we did inside. I have friends of the Islamic faith. I know that may pop some of your eyes. I have friends of the Islamic faith that I go on mission work, and they are very good friends of mine, and they treat me very well, and they watch or they listen to my sermons. And I do get emails, and I do get Facebooks, and they do send me messages and let me know about the things that I have said. Some they agree, some they do not. But we as Christians have got to stand in this world that we may not fit in, this world that we may not belong in. Jesus, if you think about it, he was born in the equivalent of a poor man's barn. A lean-to. God's Son, the Savior of the world, born in a barn. That just don't fit. It wouldn't wouldn't fit with you. You wouldn't want to be born in that way and in that time. And even in that time, they weren't born in a barn. But Jesus was. Jesus was conceived to a woman that was not even married. The hierarchy would have outcasted her. She would not have been welcomed into people's homes as someone that was an unmarried, pregnant woman. Just in that look alone, not even being able to meet her and understand her situation and let her talk about the angel and let her explain about all that was done, she would have not been accepted at all. Outcast. When he was 12, then he had a choice. Luke chapter 2 tells us that he would rather discuss God's will than to do anything else. 12-year-old, listening to religious discussions. Some look on that today and go, what a nerd. A 12-year-old who uses his time to think about God's purposes in this world. It's just weird. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in this world today. You would think 12-year-olds have better things to do, and in fact, we would even think our 12-year-olds would be responsible enough to be able to do other things than to think about God, to think about Jesus, over our Bible studies inside of that. Jesus was never married. He never went into the world to be able to find him a helpmate. He never went into the world and did what normal humans would be able to do at that day and at that age. Men would always reach out to be able to find someone that was connected to them. And I'm sure there was plenty of women around that Jesus could have attracted or could have been attracted to, but that was not the Jesus factor. That was not what Jesus was here for. Throughout all of that, Jesus never owned a thing. Jesus never had a place to sleep other than being raised. But once he became an adult, once he started traveling, he never bought a house, never built a house. He always relied upon his friends to be able to find a place. We call that couch hoppers today. Staying in hostels wherever he went, not having a job other than speaking and allowing the other people that were following along with him to be able to get him something to eat, find him a place to stay, and even drawing the crowds to him. Today we look at that as being a vagabond. Jesus might have just been downright irresponsible today, standing with him. Many of you would hardly thumb your nose at him, can't believe he's coming into worship with us, don't even understand why he would even be a part of who we are. He didn't work, he didn't keep a job, he couldn't stay in one place, couldn't find a wife. So under our guidelines, under our values, Jesus was pretty worthless. Jesus accepted people that those religious Pharisees rejected. And they rejected the people the religious leaders said that should be accepted. This is what he was told. Refuse to associate with the spiritually troubled and evil. Associate with those that are religiously prominent. This is what he did. He associated with the spiritually troubled. Those that had some pretty bad spiritual problems in their lives, even those that were evil. And he challenged the religious prominent to look at their own spiritual flaws. And in no way did he fit in what would be considered the everyday world. In fact, acceptable religious society regarded Jesus as dangerous. Over in John chapter 1, down in verse 10 and 11, just read many of the Gospels. It's very obvious that Jesus didn't belong to this world, and he knew it. John said of Jesus here, he was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and those who were his own did not even receive him. If you would think for a second about what you would hope that Jesus would have, would be a group of people that would love him, those of his own. What if nobody in your community, accepted you? If homecoming was going on and you come out and got all dressed, you walked out into homecoming, and we know there's a parade happening, there's a great thing, there's a lot of people that come and they just enjoy our homecoming, but you went out there and not one person even looked at you. So maybe you went over and you sat down at a place on one of the seats that are there, and every person that was there just got up and going to walk away from you. I don't want that. In fact, somebody might come over and they'd say, "Hey, Kevin, if you don't care, we don't want you to be a part of homecoming. We don't want you to be a part of this. If you don't mind, just leave." Would you leave? Would you honestly just find somewhere else to go because you really bring this entire community down? How would that make you feel to be despised like that? How would it make you feel to understand that people don't like you, they don't like what you say, they don't like the meaning that you bring? The night before Jesus was executed, in John chapter 17, verses 4 and 5, Jesus said, "I glorified you on the earth, having accomplished the work which you have given me to do. Now, Father, glorify me together with yourself, with the glory which I had with you before the world was." He even thinks about where I came from. All the way back to the understanding, from the beginning to the end of the life that he had on this earth, Jesus did not fit. Here on earth, he was just human. He simply did not fit. Regardless of your age, I want you to do some serious thinking, if you will. What opinion do you have of yourself? Absolutely. What do you mean? Yeah. Do you regard yourself as reasonably intelligent? Possessing some understanding? Now, I know some of you might be sitting there going, "Oh, maybe you would vote my head." Do you regard yourself to be a Christian with a reasonable amount of faith in God? Do you regard yourself to have a reasonable degree of understanding of Jesus and the work that he did while he was here on this earth? Of what he provided all those that came to be able to hear and to listen and to obey? Today, do we grasp that? If your answer is yes, then let me go on and ask you just a couple more questions. With your intelligence and with your understanding, do these two conclusions fit together? Jesus did not fit into this world, but his greatest goal is to make us fit in this world. Does Jesus go to make you and me belong to this world? Is the Christian's everyday life, spiritual goal, everything in their being and meaning, is it to fit in this world? Would you consider that to be what Christians are all about? I'm not trying to put you on a guilt trip, but I'm really trying to get you to do some meaningful soul searches while you're here. What is it, the greatest accomplishment that you could feel that you could do while you are here on this earth? Did you think about our diligent efforts, our planning to make ourselves and our children fit in the part of our world that is really no concern of God. It's the greatest thing that we got going on in our families' lives today is to make sure that our children are accomplishing their goals in sports or in leisure activities or even in education. Is that the greatest thing? We have to take our entire lives and we've got to produce one thing out of our lives. Someone said, well, Kevin, that's an okay thing to do. That is. It's great. Coming from a sports family, we didn't have a choice. All five of my brothers and sisters, including myself, we played basically something all year round. But it was never the entire focus of our life. Is your entire focus about your job? God's just going to have to take back burner. God's just going to have to move out of the way. There'll be one day when I can find time to be able to maybe worship God. You're already lost. You've already lost when you decide in your life that at this present time, I've got to do more work for me and my family than I'll ever do for God. Or even focus upon who God is and what God was. I want you, if you will, to think about what was said over in Hebrews chapter 11. We can focus there for just a second. Verse 13 through 16. The words say, all these died in faith, without receiving the promises, but having seen them and having welcomed them from a distance and having confessed that they were strangers and they were exiles from this earth. For those who say such things make it clear that they are seeking a country of their own, and indeed, if they had been thinking of that country from which they went out, they would have had opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for He has prepared a city for them. So, to a very distressed and burdened and struggling group of Christians, this writer said, total faith in Jesus Christ is everything. It gives the statement of, I'm a pilgrim and I'm just passing through. It gives the statement that I can't focus so much about our daily things without me first focusing on my spiritual life. I'm afraid sometimes, gang, we just don't do that. I'm afraid sometimes we just don't focus on God enough. Every week I'm reminded that I don't belong to this world. Every week I'm tempted to belong to this world. When I talk to those that are grieving, when I talk to those that are in misery, when I talk to those that have got mixed up lives, when I talk to those that are struggling, not only personally, but maybe even family. When I talk to those that are having a very difficult time, I always find or try to find where they're at with God. What their relationship is with God. How much time and effort have you put in going to God in prayer? How much understanding do we have that we're not going to be on this world, we're not going to be on this life that much longer? It doesn't really matter at all. I don't say that in any sense of accomplishment or goodness either. I say it because I personally know how devastating and empty it is to stop being a pilgrim and live that deception that I'm going to be able to get all out of this world and God's just not going to be a part of it. That I'm going to be able to do everything in this world that I want to do, and God's just going to have to turn His eyes away for a little while. And if I get back to you, or if I ever get to you, maybe then I can build a relationship with you. But the only difference is people see in our worship The only differences people see is when we come and we sit in these pews. We don't got anything. If our marriages are like every other marriage in the world, our homes are like every other home, our families are like every other family, our priorities are like everybody else's priorities, our values are like everybody else's values, our pleasures are like everybody else's pleasures. 6 days a week we live like godless people, and if the only time that there's a visible difference is in the 2 hours of worship, we're not really pilgrims. We're definitely not just passing through spiritually whatsoever. We're not looking for a better country. We're not looking for a better place to belong. We're not looking for a better time in our lives today. We're trying to suck everything we can out of this society that we call home. Finally, I'd like for you to listen to a prayer found over in John chapter 17. It begins in verse 14, it goes through verse 16. Jesus gave this for his 12 disciples the night before he died. Jesus says, I've given them your word, and the world has hated them because they're just not of this world. God, I've given them the word that you sent me to be able to give, and it's not helped their lives in the conditions that they live. It's actually done the opposite effect, that they have the word that you told me to be able to give them. Even as I am not of this world, I don't ask you to take them out of the world, but to keep them from the evil one. He says, I don't ask you to do something to ascend them into a heaven, to get them out of the trouble that we've given them. And by the way, the trouble that they're in right now, remember they were fishermen? Remember they were physicians? Remember they had great jobs that were going on? He says, I don't mean for you to take them out of this world. I just want you to try to get safe off the back. He's going to do everything in the world. Keep them strong. That doesn't mean the people around them, because Satan's all in them, and they're going to be attacking them because of what they believe. I just want you to give them peace and comfort, letting them know that if they remain strong like they are, that you have a place for them in heaven. He finally says they're not of the world. They're not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Each one of us should be able to walk out of here and say, because of my Christian faith, I'm not of the world. I'm not of this. I have to live here. And I have to try to carry the Word of God to other people. But sometimes people say, Kevin, it's just not worth it, man. It's not worth it. I lose out on so much by listening to the things you say and putting it into motion. And I think about all those that have sat here and been a part of our worship service that gave up on God. God didn't give up on them. They gave up on God. What are they doing with their lives now? Are they still proclaiming not to be of this world, but I'm part of God's family and I'm looking for heaven? Well, if they're not even in worship on Sunday, can I expect anything to come out of them on Monday through Saturday? If I can devote my time to God through worship, do I expect anything else? Or can God expect anything else? It's reasonable to understand the answers to that. One of the greatest challenges I think a Christian faces is understanding how to be in the world, but not of this world. It's probably the hardest thing, not only for us to get personally, but pass on to our children and our grandchildren. So what are Christians seeking? Through the grace and mercy of God, we're attaching our umbilical cords to God. When we do that, no matter what bombards us, we know that God is feeding us. God is taking care of us. Jesus is preparing that home for us. And one day, it may be today. It may be tomorrow. It may be 50,000 years from now. We don't know. But every person is going to stand before God on the day of judgment. Every person's knee is going to bow to know that Jesus Christ is Lord. person's going to have to humble themselves one day and be able to say, I believe in God. Now that's either while they're here on earth and to get on about God's business, or it's going to be a time in which each one is going to stand before God and at that time go, ooh, I should have listened. I should have listened. I should have obeyed. I should have changed my life. I should have did what I needed to do. I needed to be that Christian that everybody wanted me to be. Today, I just want you to ask yourself, what am I living for? Am I living for my house, my car, my profession, my dreams? Am I living for all the social things that I can get out of this world? Or am I listening to what God wants me to do? And to really identify and understand the word Pilgrim. I pray today that if you're subject to the Lord's invitation, that you'll take this opportunity. It takes a hard choice sometimes to be able to look in our lives. It's hard. And then when we find something lacking, man, how much effort does it take for us to be able to say, I'm sorry and I need to get right with God? I pray today that you'll take this opportunity. Won't you come? Let's all stand and say, 125. Have you a heart that